Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, yambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. We decided that in the summer of 2021, Saturdays will be our double-header Saturday. We'll be featuring two amazing authors. We'll be starting off the summer by featuring two great guests. Kathleen Davis will be here to celebrate Brave for a brand new picture book. And Marla Huehmer will be back to tell us all about the big move, Make Your Own Story Workbook. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to remind you of a brand new series of special episodes coming to the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Earth Day, April 22nd, 2021. We will be kicking off Protecting the Earth with Your Kids. My co-host, Alexia Brown, and I will be speaking to some amazing authors who are going to tell us how we can talk to our kids about climate change and how we can inspire them to take action to protect our planet. Together with you, it's going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss it. Be sure to subscribe to the show today on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast, so you don't miss one single episode of Protecting the Earth with Your Kids or of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Joining us right now from Jacksonville in Florida. So excited to welcome our guest. She is the author of a brand new picture book called Brave. Please welcome to the Reading with Your Kids podcast, Kathleen Davis. Kathleen, how are you?
I'm great, Jed. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm really excited to have you on here. Tell us all about Brave, please.
Yeah. So I decided I have a 2-year-old or 3-year-old little girl now and a 5-year-old little boy. And I got the idea for Brave because of them. They were not sleeping well. They went through this phase where they were both scared at night and were waking me up through the night. And we had to do like monster checks. And I have a background in education. And so I just was like trying to figure out like what book could I read to them to like help them feel not scared and encourage and inspire them. I had some books that, was like the monster under my bed, but those were really just like reinforcing. Yeah. And so I, was like, I could do this. I could write them a book that would make them feel comfortable, and then they would be the characters and, be able to like really see themselves as being brave and confident and understand that they're safe. So that's kind of where it came from.
Wow. Yeah. The last book I would want to read to my kids is who are afraid to go to sleep was There's a Monster Under My Bed, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you think that fear that so many kids have of bedtime, and I think there are some adults who have trouble being in the dark. Where do you think that fear comes from?
I really don't know, because it's not like my kids were like, my children can't even watch some Disney movies without being scared. So we weren't exposing them to those sort of things. Occasionally they would see a commercial or things like that, and maybe that put it in their head. But even my 3-year-old, who is a 2-year-old then, she wasn't even really watching TV. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of this natural fear that some kids have when they're alone and they're scared and they don't have mom and dad. And it just, I want to say, I think it just comes sometimes with children. Unfortunately, you have those lucky children.
Yeah, I guess there are people, we've talked a lot on the show about the fact that some people are, we celebrate the fact that people are wired differently. We're all kind of neurodiverse. And the way we look at life, and we've talked a lot here in the podcast about folks who kind of always look at life as the glass being half filled. I'm imagining that there are some kids who are wired differently, and their fears are kind of magnified. And that time alone, when they're alone at night and it's dark and I imagine that those kind of kids are just going to focus and the more you focus on something, the bigger and bigger it gets.
And my kids were always prone to having bad dreams too. So I think that kind of, was an extra little bonus, is that they'd have these bad dreams and then they would be even more afraid to go to sleep because they were afraid they're going to have bad dreams. And then my little girl, who was, she's our baby really, would have these dreams and not be able to decipher between if it was a dream or if it was real, and because it was so new and unusual to her.
Now, I'm guessing in choosing the title Brave, that you didn't address this process by telling, or this experience by telling your kids, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. Instead, you taught your kids that you can find some courage and you can deal with this and you can be brave. And even though that you're scared, you can get over it.
Yeah, exactly. That's really the whole point of it. The first line in the book is, there is a superhero who sometimes can be scared. He fights the monsters bravely and seldom needs his lair. So it's really that, even though he's a superhero, he can be scared, but he's brave and he faces them. And then in the end of the book realizes there's nothing to worry about them. Him and his sidekick is a sister in the book. And they end up, there's one illustration that has them sitting on their bed and the monsters are under the bed and they're just eating pizza and they don't care. So yeah, it's not necessarily like these fears aren't real, but it's that these fears are real but you're stronger and you're loved and you're safe.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, I'm reminded of a quote from Nelson Mandela. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And that sounds exactly what you're doing. You're acknowledging, there are some things that are scary out there, but you can deal with it. You have the courage to win out over that fear.
Yeah. And then I just to kind of bring it home, the very last page in my book says, it's kind of like a mantra page, and it says, you are brave, you are safe, you are loved, you are brave. And then I actually have a verse from the Bible, do not fear, for I am with you, Isaiah 41:10. So like, even if you have no other explanation, and even if you just cannot get over your fears, like in the end, God's got you. And you can always fall back on that. So that was kind of like, okay, even if we can't get through this, there's always God.
Yeah. And tell me, how did it work with your kids?
It worked, and it's still working. I mean, occasionally we have, just last week we had to take a trip out of town, my husband and I, and my daughter was really not doing well with us leaving. So we pulled out the book and read it, and she was went from on the edge of losing it to she was okay. And my mother-in-law watched her, and she said she just held that book all weekend, and she would look at it and read it and remember that she's got courage. So I want to say it worked. I've also heard from a lot of parents who have had issues with their kids sleeping that it's really helpful also, or has been really helpful with them also.
Yeah. I'm thinking that this approach that you took in Brave with your kids is a really helpful one. And, parents out there whose kids are older, maybe they're in third, fourth grade, middle school, even high school, there's still a lot of things that our kids face that they're afraid of. And I think it's important for us to remember that just poo-pooing it away and saying, that there's nothing to be afraid of, and I don't think that really helps.
No, I agree with you. I know my mother will always tell my kids, there's no such thing as monsters, but it's meaningless to them because for them it's real. So I agree with you fully.
And, not to, criticize your mother-in-law. If you watch the TV news, there are a lot of monsters in our world.
It's true.
Yeah, there are a lot of things for us to be concerned with, and certainly if kids hear any of those news reports, or if they hear parents talking about it, there's definitely things to be afraid of, and so I liked the strategy that you took to deal with this. Did you have to sit down and kind of plot this out, or was this idea of teaching your children to face their fears and to be brave, did that just come naturally to you?
Yeah, it came pretty naturally. As I had said, I was a teacher for 10 years, so I really had a knack for being able to look at books and analyze their value as far as whatever it was I was looking for, whether I wanted to teach a moral, or whether I wanted to teach about character development, or whether I wanted to teach about vocabulary. As a teacher, I could look through a book and figure out, if this one was good for it. So I knew the point of this book was obviously to teach a lesson, to help my kids to understand, to not be afraid, and all kids to not be afraid. And I had that in my head, and I sat down one night and I wrote it in like 15 minutes. And it's a pretty simple, short, rhyming children's book, but it was written in about 15 minutes. And then, of course, I went back and edited it and everything, but it didn't take long, really.
Yeah. I think, and I'm glad you clarified and helped people understand. It came to me in 15 minutes. We still worked on it a lot. We polished it, we edited it.
There was a lot of other people looking at it, revising it. And what about this word instead of this word? And what would be ideal? For sure. It wasn't not a 15-minute process. Okay, let's bring it to the printers. We're ready.
That's right.
It was much longer.
Yeah. Hey, as a retired teacher, how important is it, do you think, for families to read with their kids on a regular basis? And not only with their babies, with their 2 and 3 year olds who might be afraid to go to sleep, but to continue to read and co-read with their kids as they're in older elementary grades and middle school and high school?
So when I was a teacher and parents would come into my classroom and say, and I would tell them, your child is struggling. And they would say, well, we don't really know what to do to help them. And the number one thing I would tell parents that every parent could do is read to your child. And that was when I taught 2nd grade. And that was when I taught 5th grade, to read to your child. Because reading to your child, whether you're reading, like you said, to the small kids or whether you're reading to a big child, they're still hearing what a fluent reader sounds like. They're hearing the expression, and they may be becoming more exposed to a higher level vocabulary, concepts that they may not necessarily be able to understand on their own if they were reading it on their own. But if you're reading it to them and explaining it to them, they're able to get those concepts because you can stop and explain. But it's more important than anything you can do if you want your child to become a better reader, is to read aloud. And something that we need to work on in this house is reading in front of your kids, just to yourself. And just modeling that when we're bored, we don't always have to get on our iPad, and we don't have to get on the TV, and we can always read a book. That's a good thing to do too. And I know that's something that is so hard to do because everybody's so busy, and the first thing we kind of end up doing is hopping on our phone and checking our email and checking whatever. But reading yourself and reading to your kids is the best way to help them become better readers and develop a love for reading. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned kids, reading with your kids gives them a chance to hear somebody reading fluently. Can you kind of, my beautiful wife is a teacher, and she's in her 33rd year as a teacher. There is a difference between someone who's just reading the words and someone who is able to read fluently. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I decided, for instance, this year to homeschool my son in kindergarten, which I've never taught kindergarten. It's a little trying, but so we use the word fluent, being a fluent reader, a lot here. And so he's starting to pick it up. But being a fluent reader just means reading smoothly and reading with expression. And as you said, a lot of times when kids are learning to read, it's very choppy. So they might even finish a sentence and not even remember or understand anything they just read because there was no flow with it. So if you have a struggling reader, it's not necessarily the best thing to do to just keep making them read it, because they may not be even comprehending anything they're reading. So reading it in a way that has expression and is smooth that they can actually comprehend it is ideal. And then you'll notice them to start to read fluently. So, my son will read the same book until he can read it with expression. And he'll even say to me, Mom, I'm reading like an adult. I'm reading with expression. So that's basically all it means. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's important, I think. And, I don't think a lot of parents realize that there is this difference, and that, the kids that are struggling to sound out each word, you give them kudos for making that effort in sounding out the words, but also help them take that step beyond.
And help them to realize that they can enjoy books, that it's not all just work. They're fun too.
Yeah. Do you think it would help if you, for example, you mentioned that you taught second graders. If you have that child who's struggling to read and, every word is difficult, so let the child struggle, get those words out there, and then sit down and read the book with them again.
Yeah,
so that they can do it.
A strategy I take, and I don't know if it's right or wrong or in between, but is I will always read it first, and I'll do the initial read so my son can kind of understand what the story is about. And then we'll do like a choral reading, which means I'll read it and then he'll read it, and then I'll read it and then I'll read it, and then he'll read it. And that's the first time we go through a book, is we try to do that. That way he's pretty much got what the concept of the book is before he has to do it on his own. And another thing I wanted to mention too was for parents who maybe don't even have the time and their just schedule is crazy, there are so many free platforms for audiobooks too. And kids can always just hop on and you can just put it on in the car when you're driving to school. So if you don't even have the time to read aloud to your kid, just pop on an audiobook. I know our library in Jacksonville has 3 different free platforms that you can get, which are great.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's tons and tons of read alouds on YouTube. And if you have, I think 4 or 5 vans ago it was, I could, hook the Bluetooth up. There was a way that I could do the audio from my phone into the van speakers. So, there's that option too. You can just kind of course, you don't want to watch YouTube while you're driving, but you can set it up and push play as you're driving. Kathleen, this has been great. Could you tell everybody, please, where they can go to find out more about Brave and more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to my website, KathleenDavisBooks.com, it's books plural, so KathleenDavisBooks.com. That's my website. There's information about me. There's information about the book. You can purchase the book there. And there's also, I have up there some free coloring pages, which are all pulled from illustrations from the book. So if you want to just print out some free coloring pages. Otherwise, for the Amazon customers, it's on Amazon, and you can order both the hardcover and the picture book. And I also have an ebook, which if you are a KDP Select customer right now, it's 100% free. So lots of different ways to get it.
Awesome. We've been talking about being brave with the author of Brave, Kathleen Davis. Kathleen, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. This was great. Thanks a bunch.
Before we invite Marla into the studio, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Great place to go for so much information. You can visit our Certified Great Read Wall of Fame. Find another great book to add to your children's library. You can also find out about our live events and sign up for our newsletter. It's totally free and lots of fun. That's readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from Southern California, our friend Marla Huehmer is back. She is a 3-time Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read author, and she's here today to celebrate a really cool little concept. It's not so much a storybook, but a great way for you to create stories with your kids. Please welcome back to the show, Marla Huehmer. Marla, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad we get to have this chance to meet about our new workbook. It's Make Your Own, The Big Move book. So it's a little, if you've bought the first book, The Big Move, then you're going to have real fun with this Make Your Own, The Big Move book.
Yeah, that is really fun. And I've often said it's amazing that we're living in a time where families actually have the ability to come together and tell their story, to create a book, and to get a book printed professionally for not a lot of money. But like a lot of things, families are like, okay, I can do that, but I don't know how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a way that you've given families a tool that can really help them tell their own unique story and then put it together and create a book.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Well said.
So the Big Move, of course, is a Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Move, and it's about a family of snails that find themselves needing to move. does the family have to picture themselves as a family of snails to be able to enjoy this book?
No, the family does not have to picture themselves as a family. That's a cute question of snails to make this book. I think the reason why we chose the snails is just because it's based on the Big Move book. Mm-hmm. But kids can add things if they want, because the book does come with 2 little girl snails, but they are more than welcome to get inspired and create another little girl or a boy snail, or change the shell color, or do what they want so they can make it more fitting to their own family. Or maybe there's just one child in the family, and maybe there's one parent and one child, or so they can mix and match the snails, or they can create their own characters. Instead of using the snails, they could add their own. I think once they get cutting and seeing how the book works, the Make Your Own book works, I think they'll be inspired to, and I've seen kids, they'll draw their own little person, and they may cut it out and say, oh, I'm going to use this person here. So that's what my hope is with the book, is to get them thinking and creating on their own, and they can change it up any way they want. I'm just giving them the tools on what it looks like to how to make your own book, because often kids have a hard time starting it. Mm-hmm. I want to make a book, but how do I do it?
Right. And as I understand it, your book comes with writing prompts, little sentences that kids can complete.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first page is a nice description of how the book works. And I also talked about the benefits of the Make Your Own book. I think it's so great for kids to help them practice their writing skills, learning how to write a sentence, practice reading. They're learning and practicing their punctuation. They learn how to illustrate and write a story. They work on their fine motor skills. They're working on their organizational planning and attention skills. And overall, it builds your self-esteem because you created something so meaningful. And then the next page, you have a great little writing template. And I give you 7 sentences that you fill in. So, for example, the first one would be, it is time for us to blink. And you know the story is about a move, and the family's moving. So you fill that in the next sentence, and then the next sentence, and next. So I give you a little bit of a help. I give you a few words, and then you fill it in. And then you go from there. And then the next page is a great description on how you work our illustrations. So we provide you with over 20 pages of adorable, colorful illustrations to cut out and put on a blank page. And you get a total of 7 blank pages. And when you're all done, you'll open it and you have your own written and illustrated book.
Yeah.
Super cute.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And it's really neat. Now, you were talking about the benefits of doing this together. You're not just making these up. You are a trained school psychologist. And so you're speaking of, you're sharing your knowledge and your wisdom.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So when I think of putting a book together, you really are learning a whole process. You're working these parts of your brain that are getting you to think ahead, which is my company name, mm-hmm. And to organize and to plan things out. My big suggestion on these books are, don't glue right away. Don't glue your characters right away. Plan it out. Figure out where you want to place your people and make your scene how you want it. You don't exactly have to make it exactly the way we have it, but we have great examples for you to refer to. So I just think when you're creating something that requires a step-by-step process, I think it just really helps a child learn how to organize their thoughts and plan and work on those skills, which I think are most important for school.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many kids, and my kids are a great example. My daughter is incredibly organized.
Oh, good. That's
like
good.
It amazes me how she's able to kind of piece things together, and it's very helpful, and that's something that she does in her corporate life now. My son is the opposite. He was very unorganized, and both are both very intelligent people. But my daughter had an easy time with school, and my son, it was more difficult. And it wasn't because he didn't understand the information. He's a really intelligent kid. He just couldn't get it organized. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. A lot of kids, they're labeled, something, either because of what's going on in, chemical-wise in their head, but also I think when you're labeled like an ADHD or something, those kids with ADHD are very smart. They're very intelligent kids, but they just have a problem. I'm not saying your child has this, but I do have, in my experience, really smart kids with ADHD. They are really smart, but they have a hard time organizing and planning and keeping their things together. What do I do first? And then what do I do next? What do I do after that? What do I do with this gap in the day? A lot of online kids who have ADHD, if there's a drop call or there's, the teacher can't meet, then they're like, oh boy, what do I do now? So, I think this, I don't think this is the cure-all, but I think it helps kids and parents work together on that step-by-step process. This is what we do, then this is what we do, then this is what we do, and redirecting them and refocusing them and teach them what it feels like to start something from the beginning and work your way to the middle to the end. Mm-hmm.
And you speak not only from experiences as a school counselor, but you also, all of your books have been created in this family way. Your kids have been a big part of the creation of all of your books.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think that, I know my daughter, my oldest one, she's very organized now after I've worked with her. Because, when you hit a certain age, you have so many demands on you when you get to a certain grade level. And you have to really learn to be more independent. So you have to really give them some sort of guidance. Kids aren't just born to jump in and go, oh, I need to turn this in. I need to get this done. This is due. They're not born with that. We need to help them and support them. And you hope that their teachers will teach them that too. But sometimes there's not time to teach them organizational skills in school. And because they're so focused on which is important, the academics. So my books are focused on my children helping me, and they do a great job. I think in the process of us illustrating, they're learning also the step-by-step process. How do you begin something? How do you work on to the next thing, and to the next thing, and to the next thing, and then how to finish the end. So it's like an educational process for them.
Yeah. And we talk so much about the benefits of reading together with our kids, and I believe that reading together with our kids is the starting point, and it should be a great clue for us to understand that, hey, reading with our kids is fun, so writing with our kids would be fun, cooking with our kids, exercising, all those things doing with our kids is so much fun, and it's also really valuable for our kids.
Oh, exactly. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I'm excited. Tell me, where can folks go to find out more about all of your books and also find out about this brand new workbook?
So you can find Make Your Own, the Big Move book on Amazon, of course, and then on our website, thinkaheadkids.com. Those are the two main places. So you just type it in, and if you go to Amazon, just type in Make Your Own, the Big Move book, and then it'll pop up. And if you go to our website, thinkahead.com, then you can go and go to the store section. So we have a new section on there called Celebrating Authors. And that is where I'm talking about celebrating all our new authors. I think a lot of independent authors who can get overlooked sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so Think Ahead Kids decided we're going to go ahead and pick the top picks that we really love. There's so many indie books circulating, and so we are grabbing all the really best ones that we think are the best ones. And so we have a good page dedicated to our authors about that called Celebrating Authors. But to get the Make Your Own, the Big Move book, that's down on the store section of the thinkaheadkids.com website.
Yeah, thinkaheadkids.com. It really is a great website with great resources. Talks about your book, and of course kids can get your book. You can meet new authors, find out the next book that you want to add to your family library. This is wonderful. How has it been? Just before we go, just talk a little bit about the joy that you've found as an author being part of this kidlit community.
Oh, definitely. Oh, I love being a part of it. I didn't even know that what I was walking into when I first published Andrew the Blue-Eared Puppy. But I have found that I have always loved kids' books. I am the mom that will go to Barnes & Noble when my daughter was just little And I would come out with probably about 15 books, kids' books. And I'd go home and I'd sit down with my kids and we'd read them and we read them and we read them. And we tuck them away. We have a special playroom that is just stocked with kids' books on shelves. It's not, it can get messy because they come in there and my little one, she pulls them out. She's like at a bookstore and she says, I'm going to read this one a day, this one a day, this one a day. And it's just so neat to see. We have a TV in there too, but it's hardly ever on because they enjoy their books and they like spending time in their reading. And so I know that I have a love for books and parents have a love for books. So I just wanted to celebrate, kids' books. And I thought, how can I do that? So I created a website and I made sure I put my books on there because I'm very excited about them and proud of them. And then I wanted to encourage families to come to our website. So I do free and fun activities about every month. I have a free and fun activity for parents to do with their kids. And then, and now I just, to celebrate the Kidlit population, I'm supporting other authors, with great books. And I'm coming across amazing books too. I know when I write my books, they're from the heart, and they all have a special meaning and a special purpose to try to support families. And then I'm meeting new authors with amazing books on how to think positive. I have a new person coming on that has a book about technology, how to just not spend so much time on the computer. Just great books about autism, just a lot of things that are just, I think would be great resources for parents. So, and I'm building it. We're building a great library. So I know people can get so bombarded with so many books, but I think ThinkAheadKids.com has some great books right now, mine and others. And we're building our library.
Awesome. Well, we've had a great time speaking about the Big Move book, the Big Move, Make Your Own Story book, and also visiting with our friend Marla Huehmer. Marla, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Sean March. He'll be here to celebrate Little Wade and Watchtower, a really, really fun book. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun. It's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book, and it's absolutely free. Doesn't cost anything. No need to hire anybody to facilitate your visit. Just go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on the author's click here button at the top of the page, scroll on down to where it says be a guest. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guests, Kathleen Davis and Marla Huehmer. Be sure to check out Brave by Kathleen and the Big Move Make Your Own Story workbook from Marla. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Alexia Brown, Hannah Pat Oboisky. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.